Hi, I'm Kim. You're watching Kim Wilson TV. My channel is dedicated to helping victims of narcissistic abuse get free and stay free. Today I want to talk about the devastating effect that the brainwashing, manipulation, control, and, all the gaslighting and sweet, mean cycles that we've all been through. Like, how do you take all of that mind fuckery, stop it in its tracks and redirect it to a new sense of self and a new sense of hopefulness for a different future, a new perspective on love, and how to help get people back on track to becoming who they used to be or who they want to be in the future. Now, there's no doubt that months, years, decades of verbal abuse, lying and cheating, of course it's going to start to break people down. Your mindset is going to start to change. And I think, for me, what happened and why I became so dedicated to trying to fix it and to trying to be the better partner that Trevor needed was because he was constantly telling me what a horrible person I was, how stupid I was, how incompetent I was, what a failure I was, and just what a rotten person I was overall. So once I had committed to trying to be a better person, I also had to admit to myself that I had bought into, his projection on me that I was a complete loser. Had I not bought the fact I was a complete loser, well, I wouldn't have been buying into the fact that I needed to be more than the piece of shit he was telling me I was. And I think that's where, the brainwashing really, impacts us in a very, very painful way, because you're not going to start to try and change it or fix yourself if you haven't come to believe you're broken. And I know for me, all the horrible things he said to me, and of course, I'm thinking he loves me, so I'm thinking, why would he be lying to me? And I think in the end, it really came down to realizing, well, first of all, they're absolute pathological, habitual, chronic liars. So for me to believe that everything else he said was a lie, I too have to come to believe that those horrible things he said about me were a lie too. This video really stems from an email that I received many months ago. I've not discussed it to this point because I really needed to read over it many times, really internalize it, and there have been many nights I fell asleep thinking about it, and it was still the first thing on my mind when I woke up the next morning. And this friend at Kim Wilson TV did share with me the suffering that she'd been going through over the last 20 years. Now, at first, I thought she'd been in the relationship and was being abused for 20 years, but no, that's not what it was. She had actually gotten free from the abuse 20 years earlier and had continued to suffer horrendously for the next 20 years after the departure from the relationship. She had basically been no contact, but had never been able to fully recover. She had never been able to fully restore her career, her relationships, her finances, her health, and had really left the relationship in a tremendously incapacitated and diminished spiritual state, and had stayed that way for 20 years, and was just after 20 years taking control of her life back and saying, enough of this, absolutely enough of this long-term suffering, and enough of this wallowing in misery. 20 years is a long time to be depressed and unhappy and feeling bad about yourself. It, to me, felt like a commitment, a real commitment. And after 20 years, you would think that that lifestyle of depression and misery, had become etched in stone, had become the foundation of this friend's life. But at 20 years, they had just drawn a line and said, I'm not carrying this burden beyond this 20-year point. So I'm going to say that was tremendously brave, in my opinion, because, you'd think that after 20 years of very committed misery, depression, sadness, hopelessness, lack of self, lack of ambition to move forward, you'd think that had solidified. But no, this friend had decided at the 20-year mark they'd had enough. So I guess my question then became, okay, once etched in stone like that, if you're able to muster the strength and, that changing of a mindset to the point where you're now not willing to do that anymore, can you do that at other points? Can you do that at 20 months? Can you do that at 20 weeks? Can you do that at 20 days? Is there a 20-hour marker of misery where you say, you know what, I'm not carrying this into the 21st hour. I'm refusing to do that. How much of that do we control, and how much power do we have over the lingering suffering once removed from the toxic relationship with the narc? I guess what I really read between the lines in this extremely valuable email was nothing changes till something changes. Things will remain the same in your life, in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit, until you say, I've had enough, and I'm not going to carry that burden beyond this point. And it was a really hopeful message to me, because I would think, if I was doing the same behavior every day for 20 years, this behavior would become very indoctrined. It would become my behavior. And maybe, much, much harder to change, much harder to put your foot down and say, that's it, where at a lesser period of time, 20 months, 20 weeks, 20 hours, 20 days, before it had become indoctrined, before it had really established itself as a mindset and a way of life, it just seems to me the quicker you hit this thing, the better off you're going to be, and the better chance you're going to have of correcting this really negative self-programming I think it's a choice. I've come to believe that it's a choice, and the choices that we're making regarding our own recovery is based on a lot of that lingering bullshit and mindfuckery, and just that lingering abuse. I mean, I've been away now 6-7 months, and trust me, I still hear the noise. Now, I know for many of us, when the decision was made to leave, that was it, and I know that for myself. There was that moment, that absolute defining moment where, his mask fell off, Trevor was fully exposed, and I was completely done. That was it. That was all. The wall was up. That evil was not penetrating my life anymore, though there was quite a relentless bombardment over the next 6 months while I planned my exit strategy and finally got out of there. But I was impenetrable. I was done. And I knew when that defining moment was. I think for many of us that have left, most certainly there had to be a moment where you knew you were done with this bullshit and you were out of there. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you were able to create that defining moment for yourself. I mean, it's one thing to put up a wall against, a narcissist and their abuse, but what about that lingering guilt or shame, or just the insidious confusion as to what just happened, what went wrong, and then they've got that saying, it's easier to fool people than make people realize they've been fooled. And I think for a lot of us, we're sitting there thinking, how did I miss this? How did I get sucked back in multiple times? How did I not see what was happening? So now we're kind of victim shaming ourselves. How do you put up that protective wall against your own thoughts? Is there a way to just say, I've had enough and now I'm going to do new things. I'm going to have new conversations. I'm going to take new actions. I'm going to think new thoughts. And I'm not going to buy into that bullshit that the narc had projected on me. Do you reach a point where you just say, no, I'm simply not a horrible, useless, worthless sack of shit, as has been said to me. I mean, I'd just love to know how you guys, define that moment where you're just not buying the bullshit anymore and you're being set free from it, actually being liberated from that mind control and brainwashing. So I'm hoping you guys can answer some questions today. Questions like, was there a defining moment for you when you just absolutely knew you were done with this bullshit and the abuse stops now, right? That's it. And I know I had that absolute moment of, I am out of here. He can rot in hell. I'm done. Was there a moment in your recovery or once you'd moved beyond the relationship where you said, hold on a minute here, I don't feel right, my life isn't right, I need to take my power back? In addition to, was there a defining moment when you realized that? What steps did you take? What changes did you make in your life? What new thoughts, were coming to you at that time that helped you move beyond that absolute lingering pain? I think it's safe to say that lingering pain is very real, that toxic, love tie, that toxic soul tie that has to be severed. How did you sever it? Are you still struggling, looking for ways to sever it? Yeah, I'd really like to hear your thoughts on this. I'm just going to say, 20 years of suffering for me, man, that shit ain't going to work. I got things I got to do, and yeah, being crippled by long-term suffering for me is not right. I'm not saying, I'm not saying that it was manageable for other people or, they should have just toughened up. I'm not saying that, because I'll tell you, lives are absolutely ruined from this shit. And I know this is a very difficult thing to heal from. But today in this video, I really want to talk about healing and how people have achieved their greatest amount of healing through all of this. Now, before I say goodbye, I just want to mention, we're at like video 110 or something, but at video 3 or 4, a female victim had left a comment under one of the videos, and she said, basically, I'd had enough, I walked away, I was done, and I never looked back, and all I could think was, fuck you. Fuck you, narc. And, I've often thought about that comment, and I've wondered, is it just that simple? Is it just that simple that you can change your thinking to be just very simply, hey, you abusive motherfucker, fuck you. Not here, not now, not ever again. Is it that simple? Could it be that simple? And she's one of the few people who have ever left a comment like that, where it was just so cut and dry and very simply, I see you, I know what you are, and you can fuck off. And I will tell you that I've very much adopted the philosophy in that comment. And many days, if I get noise and things, I just think, hey, Trev, fuck you. And I'm wondering what people think about a comment like that. Guys, I'm Kim. You're watching Kim Wilson TV. I hope you guys are having a great narc-free day. And I hope everyone's focus today will be dropping this bag of bullshit and walking away to some real and genuine healing. Love you guys lots. Happy day.